Oi you, it's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Top of the world looking
Down on creation, and the only explanation I can find is that I found a love. Oh no, fuck, I said it wrong. Sorry, you're right, I'm wrong.
I love that song.
Do it again.
Do you know where
No,
I
we should do it
listened to
again. We should do it again.
Nah, just
Yeah,
leave
no.
it.
You reckon?
Yeah, just leave
No,
it.
do it again. We should leave it. Do it again. We should leave it.
Do you know what? I really like that song.
Yeah.
I got reminded of it.
See, I want to sing it in the fucking higher octave. I'm on the top of the world, looking down on creation, and
Oh my
the
gosh,
only
Mitch.
explanation I can find
Do you know how long you are? How
is
loud
the
you are?
love that I found, even since you've been around.
Mitch, no.
Yeah.
That was so loud
Your
in my
love
ears.
has
The
put me
poor
at
people
the
listening
top
to
of
this.
the world.
The poor people listening to this. No, that
Fucking
was so
carpenters,
loud.
mate. Like, carpenters were just amazing.
They were so good.
Oh,
but
amazing.
do you know why I got reminded of that song? Because it was the last song
Yeah.
that was used in the last season of Afterlife.
Oh,
The last song, the last season, the last episode of Afterlife.
right.
And he played that as the song. And
Oh, did he?
But you know, I don't know about you, but I have certain songs. We talk to the clients about this. But I have certain songs that I use as, like inspirational. You know, and I really like that for that. Like I love that.
Yeah,
song.
it's a great song. Well, they were full of inspiration. I mean, isn't it ironic though? I mean, her death was obviously terrible. Like, what a way to go.
I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about
Her death?
No,
You know how she died?
no. I just said I didn't.
Really?
Yeah,
Is that
no,
what
I
you just-
don't.
No,
Yeah.
you really don't know how she died.
No.
She was bulimic.
Oh.
And then she, what is it after bulimia? It becomes, you just stop eating.
Anorexia.
Sorry, anorexia, yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't
She was
know that.
anorexic, yeah, she died. That's how she died.
Oh.
So she basically starved herself to death.
Wow, I did not know.
But
that.
isn't it funny, the irony, you know, behind such beauty of their
I
songs,
know,
there's
yeah.
such huge
Yeah,
tragedy,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, it's horrendous. But yeah, didn't they make a mark on the world? Fantastic, absolutely
I
fantastic.
really love that
Their
song.
album, like,
Even
I
though
listen
we've
to their
just-
album fucking regularly.
Yeah, I
You-
think that we've just butchered it for everybody, just quietly.
I'm on the top of the world looking.
No, don't do it
down on
again.
creation
Please don't do it
and
again.
the-
My ears are burning and hurting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It was a good song. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What
Well,
what
we were just chatting. I was thinking the other day about, you know, the actual, you know, when you conceptualize change and the things that, you know, making a change in your life, you know, you know, making decisions for example, to diversify in terms of, you know, your investing, and, you know, that change can rattle people. So that's why they don't change, you know, but they don't realize they're going to be rattled in other ways. So you know, we were talking about the concept of you're basic to handle your own challenges, create your own challenges, and understand that whether you're embracing your challenges or not, you're always going to be challenged.
Well, we were talking about like the birth of a new concept, the birth of a new idea.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the financial space, because I know there's a lot happening in the financial space. Whether
Yeah.
that's in a personal growth space, whether that whatever that causes friction for so many people. I know before I did any work on myself, I still struggle with it a little bit actually, and I have to be mindful of it. But before I did any work on myself, I became very loyal to what I knew. Do you know what I mean? And ideas and change were okay, but not if they were sprung on me. And then also there are certain things that when you go to change them, that whole new concept, like even like just for us, right? Even doing relationships anew and being able to put that online, right?
Yeah.
I knew that could happen. Like conceptually and consciously, I knew that it could happen. But there was a process for me to acknowledge that we could do that in a different way than what we had already done it. So this birth of this new concept or this new idea that it could be done in a different way that's a bit of a struggle for some people. So what we were talking about before we came online was one of the places currently in the financial climate is watching what's going on in with crypto, right? We had your dad here, I don't know how long ago, it was a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking to him about NFTs, we were talking to him about crypto and how it works, and he was just asking questions, and I can totally understand. I can totally understand the questions he was asking, like, but is that real money? And
how do I get it out? If I want to go, and cash it in, how do I cash it in?
All that sort of stuff, and like, how can you actually use it? And da 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 da. And you were really good when you were explaining it to him, explaining that what we said was, when you were young, Eamon, you wouldn't have thought that plastic or credit cards would be an option, that you could just go and swipe a card and you've handed money over. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the whole idea of a new concept can be really challenging for people.
Well, and it also attracts, really attracts friction. But friction is there for the purpose of progress. If there's no friction, there's no progress. So you require friction, and there's always friction. So people always have friction in their lives, but they require friction to make sure that you would have no problem with friction if the friction that you were having was based on something that you were creating and you could see an outcome.
Yes.
Right. So you would move towards that friction. You would move towards that outcome, knowing that you're going to have friction. So friction in life is always there for the purpose of progress. But if the friction you have in your life is not based around the destiny or the outcome that you want in your life, well, then the friction you got in your life is based around somebody else fulfilling their destiny, and it's at the cost of your destiny and the cost of your emotion because of the friction is in your life. So this is, so let's take that now to currencies and money and et cetera, et cetera. If you have a financial outcome that you want and you're diversifying across your money, so you're going,
like
okay, I've
got shares, I've got crypto,
I've got shares,
I've got
metals, crypto,
property.
When you make a new choice, you're going to have friction in that choice, right? But then if we look at currencies, when they went from an exchange of, cattle, right? So, a farmer had a whole heap of cattle. He hadn't got enough land to graze them on. He goes to the farmer next door who has all the land.
Which was their first form of exchange.
First forms of exchange. He goes to the farmer who has all the land. He cuts a deal that says, okay, any of the calves that are born in the time period that you're grazing on my land become mine, or a percentage of them become mine. Then that created a friction because the farmer would have thought, okay, has there been more? Has there been less? How am I going to cut this deal? Am I going to have to argue this out? Am I going to fight with my friend next door to do this? So there's always that friction. So friction is there for the purpose of creating clarity towards your destiny, because then you go and talk to the farmer and say, okay, let's cut this deal. What does it actually look like? How many cattle do you actually need, or how many do you want? And if we can't match that, or if there's too many, you understand that some of them will come back with me, some of them won't. And then they move to metals. Those are forms of exchange we're creating.
So it starts with livestock, and then it moves
then it moves to metals. And then when you move to metals, you're like, okay, there's friction around, is the weight right in the coin? Is this a corrosive? Am I going to get robbed? So as we progress, the progression is there, and the friction is there for the purpose of us getting better and better and better and more organised with it.
I hadn't thought about it like that. That's a good point.
And
so
then it's
the friction from the first form of exchange, which was the livestock, is the problems and the things that you have with that, and the friction that's caused from that creates the change to the metals. Is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
And so then the metals, once we've got the friction and the problems that come along with the metals, we move on to the next phase of form of exchange.
Yeah, which is papers and notes and stocks and bonds. But then that has its own challenges. But challenge is there for the purpose of progress. Friction is a byproduct of the challenge that's there for the purpose of progress.
Yeah.
But so if we look at what's happening with crypto at the moment, like, it's really volatile, but they were all volatile. Cattle to metals created volatility. People warred, killed, murdered each other's children over it, stole land, stole cattle. People were hung for stealing cattle at one stage. They were fucking hung. They were taken out. A rope was thrown around a tree, and you were hung if you were caught stealing cattle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And in, there's places, I know still in Ireland today, one of the worst crimes you can do if you're caught going out, driving up from Dublin and going out to a farm, robbing a fucking sheep because, you can end up
Do they do that a lot?
They do it anywhere. But I mean, growing up in Ireland, I knew that sort of stuff would happen. And people would go down and you'd be taken out to a paddock and you'd be fucking kneecapped. And that stuff happened. You'd be thrown in a hole in the ground. They'd just start pouring dirt on you. They wouldn't give a shit because you went and killed. And that sort of stuff still happens around the world. But it's there for the purpose of progress and to make us better people so that we don't steal. We can communicate better. Hey, my family's hungry. Is there any way I can da-da-da-da-da? So it's there for the purpose of that sort of progress. But it's the same with cryptocurrencies. There's huge volatility in the market right now. And we know that there's a hack has just happened with Luna. So that hack...
It's not just happened, but...
Yes, no, it's not just happened. But Luna, that hack of Luna then makes everybody go, okay, how do we make this more secure? Because, crypto is not going away.
Yeah, no.
It ain't going anywhere. Yeah. Sure, its volatility is huge, but that's very, very normal. And if you look at, throughout time, chaotic events, this is, war... And chaotic events is where most millionaires and billionaires are born because people take advantage of those moments.
Well, it's not even... you're right, but just the way that you say take advantage makes it sounds like it's a manipulative thing, but it's not. It's people who are masters understand how life works.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They understand that there are ebbs and flows, that everything goes in cycles. And when that whole thing happened in the crypto space there before... It's like you see so many people are commenting about losing their life savings and stuff like that. And other people are like, everything goes in cycles. Everything goes in cycles. Everything goes in cycles.
Yeah.
And there's so many people trying to remind other people. But people, I think they just want the plus. They don't want the minus.
Yeah, they want to... Because people are bought into that illusion. You know, they're sold that illusion from birth. There's a heaven.
There's a place you can be that it's just going to be plus and it's not going to be minus.
Which is fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
There's a heaven, right? We're going to have peace on earth. We've never, ever had peace on earth. Ever. It's never been documented and it never will be documented because if we had it, there'd be no progress. There'd be no growth.
Yep.
That's it. We're there. That's a fucking... a unicorn.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But people are bought into that, and that's why they become emotional. But on top, and everybody does, including me, until I stop and stabilize and go, okay, fucking stabilize. But when I talk to guys that are investors or run CV funds or anything like that, when I talk to those guys, and you ask them, okay, what's the conversation? And it's like, they never think tomorrow the next day. They don't even talk about it. But they talk about the long term. Okay, this is just what happens. We know that as we head towards this 5-year goal, the markets are going to go up and down. That's what happens. The only time you'll be at the mercy of that is when you watch it drop and you panic. The only time you lose money is when you fucking sell.
But that's the same with everything. I think I said on another podcast, I've been learning especially over the last year, maybe two probably, since this whole COVID thing's happened, that everything that you want in your life, like if you've got a system to it and you're not emotional about it, it's going to be fine. And so what happens is, I was talking to one of our guys, in terms of crypto, and he was telling me the story about these different people in the crypto land that basically went and bought a stack of Bitcoin, a stack of Ethereum and other coins, and they just chuck it on a ledger and leave it there. Yeah. They don't touch it.
They don't even look at what it's doing.
They're not looking at the fluctuations of the up and the down because it's not relevant to them. They have such a long-term plan that it's just... And so that's their system. As soon as you have a system, then you're not emotional. So when we talk about the wealth principles, we have a system of how do you manage your funds, how do you move the money around, and it's not going on a week by week or a day by day feeling of I want to spend this money on myself so I can buy a dress so I can feel better, or so I can buy this new brand new toy so I can make myself feel like I'm okay. It's no, I have a system, and that system shows me what's next, and therefore I don't have to bring my emotions into it. Emotions are the thing that messes everything up, because when we're emotional, when we've got a system, we will handle the pluses and the minuses of everything that comes along. If we don't, then we're not going to be able to handle the friction, right? We're not going to be able to handle that pressure because we're only thinking that it's going to be one way.
And it's like one of the things we do and talk to people about is you've got to run your life like a corporation, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at what's happening, institutional money in the currency, cryptocurrency for the moment, for example, is not the money that's pulling out. It's day traders, mums and pops. That's the one, and they're the ones that are going, oh, this person has lost everything. Some people are even taking their lives. But the institutional money is not doing that. And there's even, I've seen some tweets going around that they're saying that the hack perhaps was BlackRock that have gone in and done it.
Yeah.
To destabilize, so that they can go in and take more of a sharehold, because what happens, Bitcoin plummets again, and then institutional money goes in and goes, I'll swipe the whole, I'll have that, thank you very much.
That's one of the big problems with crypto, is that literally someone does a tweet, someone tweets something and it's up or down or sideways.
Yeah.
It does, it's just so it can be quite volatile. So you have to have a plan when you're going into anything like that. So in terms of I think that what we were saying before as well, it's really about being this is about, and we've spoken a little bit about financially, right? But in terms of any area of your life, the birth of a new concept, the birth of a new idea, there's always wobbles that come with that. There's always, but in order to grow, you can't rely on the way that you've been. You can't rely on what you've done all of this time. You can't be loyal to that, because you're never ever going to get anything more. So you have to be able to grow. You have to birth new concepts, and that process is wobbly. And it can be, because there's friction involved in that, because there'll be elements that you're not doing it the way that you did it before, so it's going to cause things. So
it's even like in a new relationship,
Yeah.
If you get into a new relationship and it's all roses and you go through the honeymoon period, you have to be very fucking aware and very, very cautious in those moments.
Yeah.
And it's like, getting into a new business. If everything just goes boom, you have to be able, if you can't handle the bust, you'll never handle the boom.
Yeah.
And so when people just go boom and they get caught up in that, and this is why some people, never get back on their feet, because they think, I'm never going to be able to have that again. Not realizing that the bust is what actually takes you back to ground zero, to remember who you were. If you know how to make $10 million and you lose it all tomorrow, you still knew how to make it.
Yeah.
But if you're caught up into, oh my God, I'm never going to get there again, then where
so the
does that
challenges
leave you?
are created, or the challenges are there to evolve you. But what is the highest order is if you can create your own challenges to evolve you,
Totally.
which is what we talk about so much. And the fact that instead of being outwardly influenced, to be clear within about where you want to be, because then what happens is that you're always moving and growing.
Yeah.
If you're outwardly influenced, you will literally be like moving from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing, because you don't have any clear path on where you're actually headed. So the outcome, if you want to handle a new concept or the birth of a new concept, or be challenged with that change and that transformation, is that it has to come from within. You can take advice from people who know stuff, and from people who are, we had Dr. Dave on the podcast a while back, right?
Right.
And when he was talking, he said, you know your own health, you know your own body.
Right.
Sure, you'll go to a doctor to get advice based on his knowledge of health and well-being, but at the end of the day, it's you that's in charge of your health and well-being. It's exactly the same here. It's like, yourself. Ultimately, that's the goal, is knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what your outcome is. And then you take advice from people around you. But ultimately, it's not about doing what everybody's doing. It's about finding what's right for you and taking that path. And then you'll handle the challenges and the rewards that come from that.
But you also attract challenges and rewards that are aligned and congruent with the outcome that you want.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And a sign that you're off track is you're attracting challenges and rewards that are not aligned with where you want to be. Like they seem like, well, why am I attracting this, these bills, or why am I attracting, this legal situation? Why am I attracting this? This is not, I need to be aligned with this. And when you're aligned with this and focus only on that, your challenges are congruent with what you're putting into your reticular activating system. That's what turns up.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, cool. So, do we take, just before we finish up, we didn't talk about we covered the forms of exchange. we covered the first ones. I'm just going to share the other ones, right? So we went from livestock, and then that became too cumbersome, right? When people move from one thing to another, then you go to metals.
And it also created a lot of conflict between neighbours,
So then it goes to metals.
Yeah.
Metals creates its own conflict because it's heavy, it's cumbersome to move it around.
It's duplicatable.
Yeah. And then we went to paper, which is notes and stocks and bonds and stuff. And then we went to plastic, which is...
and just so people understand the problem with notes and stocks and bonds was that they were also duplicatable. They were also susceptible to fire and theft, and they were also heavy because paper's heavy.
Yeah, and then we go to plastic, which is like credit cards and things like that. But now what we're in is, and every step of the way, like from the early stages to the later stages, we resolve certain levels of conflict, create new levels of conflict. But what it's done is that from the beginning with livestock, there was a time lag. It was slow. It was cumbersome. And every time we've evolved, it's become less and less so, to the point where now we're dealing with photons, which is basically an exchange of light.
Yeah.
So I can just press a button over here, and through a light exchange, you can have money in your bank over there, and it's instantaneous. It doesn't take any time. So now that's what we're doing. Money is just an exchange. Do you know what I mean? I think that's important. And since we started that conversation, I just wanted to tidy that up.
And then we can probably take that a bit further by going, light is just another word for energy, which is just another word for consciousness, which is just another word for God or grand organizing design. So money then is an exchange of love. That's what it is. It's love currency. And we needed something to exchange, And if you can also think about it like this. If we're exchanging now currencies through light, which is a love exchange, an exchange of appreciation. That's why when we do it, we love, we watch our money appreciate because we become more appreciative. Yeah. Then the key to having more money is to become more appreciative of what you bring to the world and what you do. And this is really, really important. So how do you become more appreciative to the world and what you do? Well, you have to appreciate that life is always guiding you towards you leaving a greater legacy and mark on the world. And so therefore the key really is to know, okay, what's the mark I want to leave on the world? When I get to my deathbed, what do I want to be able to say I did here? And what will I be appreciated by other people for having done? And
I think that leads us right back full circle to that birth of a new concept. It's like, well then what perhaps do I have to take on that's new in order to achieve that? Do you know what I mean? How do I challenge myself? How do I grow through that instead of, because so much people don't realize how much, especially money, has a relationship to your legacy and feeling like you've done something here, because money is just a form of exchange to say, well done, this is what you've done, this is what you've achieved, if that makes sense. It's an exchange of value. Yeah. It has no moral value, but it's just an exchange of value that you bring on the world. So, that comes full circle to in terms of that birth of a new concept. When you're clear about what you want to do, when you're clear about your legacy, you will take on the challenge of those new concepts and those new ideas in order to help you to achieve those things.
So therefore, here's something to finish up and think about. If now we're at that evolved state where it's instantaneous, right? Then what is the next form of exchange?
I was literally just thinking that as I was speaking.
Because if you can imagine when they were thinking about plastics, they were like, oh my God, where do we go from here? What will be next? Do you know what I mean? But here, this is a really interesting point in life to go, okay, well, what will be the new forms of exchange? How will we do it?
Interesting.
In 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool.
Even if you live the most extraordinary life, there is always more to learn. This is why tens of thousands of people are using MJB seminars techniques to hack their consciousness and bridge the gap from where they are to where they actually want to be.
MJB seminars use cutting-edge transformational processes that are science-based and backed to help people break through subconscious barriers and limiting beliefs in order to reset, reboot, and live inspired. If you'd like to know more today, Google search MJB Seminars Bridge the Gap, click on the first link and watch the video.
Now, for simply watching the video, you will also receive a complimentary coaching session with one of our master coaches valued at over $600 to help you get traction in your life today. Remember, live life inspired.